The Center for Applied Human Rights was founded in 2007 and runs two postgraduate programs, an MA in Applied Human Rights, as well as an LLM in International Human Rights Law and Practice. These programs attract about 50 students every year from more than 24 countries, from all continents and from a diverse array of backgrounds, ranging from undergraduate degrees in English, politics and law, through to years of experience in human rights practice with the UN, with international NGOs, as well as local human rights activists.
I definitely chose to do the MA at the Center because of the applied nature of the program. I really wanted to develop and hone in on sort of the skills and knowledge that can be directly translated into the professional field.
I applied for York and a couple other universities as well, but I think what really stood out was the opportunity to go to Malaysia on a field trip, and also really, I guess, the vocational aspect of the course, the fact that it wasn't just academia, but it actually gave you an opportunity to put what you learned into practice was the turning point for me. So yeah.
Our field trip to Malaysia was really interesting for most of us. For me, it was the first time that I went to Asia. It was a completely different policy environment, different human rights challenges, different social political contexts, and working with one of the biggest NGOs on the ground was really interesting but also challenging issues.
I think that the field trip to Cape Town, South Africa in particular has been useful because it allowed me then a basis for comparison between the human rights work that's being done on the ground in Cape Town, the human rights work that I'm familiar with in my context in Malaysia, particularly around women's human rights, for example, and human rights education.
And then definitely the Human Rights Defending Fellowship Scheme at the program at the Center has been amazing. I think in an academic study setting, we're so used to studying about issues that happen elsewhere, usually far away. And the Defending Fellowship Scheme that brings defenders to the Center really sort of brings the reality into the classroom.
Having human rights defenders here sort of gives us the opportunity to meet new people and to talk to people who are actually involved every day struggling for human rights on the ground, which is something different to what we study in the classrooms and in the seminars.
Yeah, their knowledge is and what they know about human rights, and I also shared my experiences about my work in Somaliland.
I think what has been particularly useful for me in this program is that it allowed me the time and space to reflect on my own practices as a human rights practitioner or someone who's working in the field. And actually mingling with people from different kinds of backgrounds has actually allowed me critical reflection, or time for critical reflection on whether what I'm doing is effective and how is it that I can bring myself further upskill myself forward as a human rights practitioner.
The skills development in the program has definitely been one of the best things I've taken out of this program. The hard skills development, how to write concisely and for myriad audiences. And this includes in both a professional setting or for a professional setting and an academic setting. So how to write policy reports, press releases, critical analyses, human rights reports has been really, really helpful, and I think directly translates into a professional setting.
I think the most important thing for me was learning interviewing skills. I'd always thought that, okay, if it came down to it, I could always interview anyone, but actually having to learn how to contain your emotions, because some of the interviews that we had to do on the field trip were with dealing with sensitive topics and sensitive issues, and when it came down to it, actually a lot of the stuff that I'd learned came in handy.
Not only have we learned about human rights and the theoretical foundations for human rights law, for human rights practice, but we've definitely learned, what human rights work encompasses, how you go about doing human rights work, how to increase the efficacy of human rights work, how to implement human rights in a practical setting. That was my expectation, and it's been met.